Welcome everyone to the February 13, 2025 Palisades Neighborhood Association meeting. And our guest speaker is Kira Haggard of Parks and Recs. And we're going to start with roll call. Secretary of the month is Nancy. Take it away, Nancy.
Okay. So I have Frederic, I have John. Charles is not here. No, Elisa. Jenny, no. Carrie, yes. Roger, no. Nancy, yes. Meg, no. Rob, yes. David Westerdahl, no. But I will add Jane Schmitz, Doug Anderson, and Kira. Okay. So and then, oh, there's David. Hi, David.
All right.
Wonderful.
And then there's the approval of the last month's meeting minutes.
First we have to ask if we have a quorum. Do we? I think we do.
We do.
Yep. Okay. Motion for previous meeting minutes.
I motion that we approve previous meeting minutes.
Thank you, Carrie.
I think we need to put a date on that. So that would have been the second. Oh, no, it wasn't it was the third Thursday last month, right?
It was.
That would be January 16, 2025.
Okay, thank you.
Do we
Can
have
I have someone second that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, thanks, Freddie. All right. All in favor of minutes, raise your hand. One, two, three, four. Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
David, you came just in time. We have a quorum with you. Okay, anything else, Nancy?
That's it for now. Thank you very much.
Okay, do you want to introduce Kira?
Kira Haggard is the project manager for Parks and Rec. She's been with the city for several years now, and we were so thankful when she joined because there had been several short-term project managers prior to her. So we feel lucky to have you. And Kira's been involved with the whole Parks and Rec team in the long-term planning for Parks and Rec over the next, is it 20 years?
15.
15 over the next 15 years. There was a discussion at City Council, and Kira's nice enough to come to our meeting tonight to share an overview as it affects us and entertain our Q&A. Thank you.
Happy to. So Parks Plan 2040 is the plan that Nancy was referring to. It's our long range, what we call a park and recreation system plan. Did you have
Here,
something?
hold on, just
okay.
a second. Does everybody see the speaker on large screen? No?
I see some thumbs up.
View of everybody's face, not just Kira.
Okay. Go ahead, Kira.
I think we're good.
Okay. And if you can't hear me or see me or you're having any trouble, just let me know and I can adjust. So our park and recreation system plan looks out over the next 15 years to try to plan out what improvements we need to make to the park and recreation system. That's a combination of new project ideas, as well as capital maintenance projects that we know we're going to need to do over the next 15 years to keep things in a state of good repair. So what I am going to go through with you is just the projects that are located in the Palisades neighborhood. And you can feel free to stop me at any time. This isn't a really formal presentation. I'm just going to kind of share what's on the docket for the next 15 years, what the projects are. And we also have some projects that don't necessarily have a site identified for them. And I'll share those with you as well in case they happen to end up in Palisades. Real quick, first, I wanted to give a little update on Reseek. On February 4th, the City Council approved a contract amendment with our contractor for phase 1 so that we can continue work on the second phase, which is the playground and the picnic shelter. So I'm really excited about that. We're actually going to have a site kickoff meeting next week, hopefully, assuming the snow melts. So we're going to kind of hit the ground running with construction in March, and we really hope to be able to get a playground done and open for you guys in the summer. And thank you for all the PNA members who helped on the interview and wrote letters of support. That was really helpful. So very excited to share that update. Other projects that we've got in our parks plan. I'm going to start with Lusher Farm, which is not in Palisades, but it's across the street from Palisades. It's actually outside the city. Lusher Farm has had a master plan since 2013, but most of those recommendations were never really implemented. And it includes things like improving the trails, adding a new driveway within a safer location along Rosemont there, improving the parking lot, adding some more community gardens, putting some trailhead amenities like wayfinding and interpretive signage. There's a whole bunch of projects. Are any of you familiar with the Lusher Area Master Plan or know kind of what was slated for that area? So that's what we've put on our project list for Parks Plan 2040. So we essentially took that master plan and said, this is still a valid master plan. It was adopted by City Council. Certainly not 100% of the projects are popular. I know that some of our friends groups are not supportive of the athletic field component of that plan. Those athletic fields are located kind of behind Hazalia, kind of expands on that active recreation area. But it is our adopted master plan at this time. And so we've brought that forward into our park and recreation system plan. What I'll say about that is, and actually about all of these projects, is just because a project is in Parks Plan 2040 and then Parks Plan 2040 gets approved does not mean we have land use approval to move forward with any of these projects. So with every project I'm talking about here, the next step for almost all of these is for us to code with the community and say, okay, here's this project. Now let's talk about how exactly we want it designed and get into the details of like what that exactly looks like. And then we go out for land use approval and then development permitting, and that's kind of the usual slate. So this is the 10,000 foot level plan. It's way up here. And we're simply putting projects on this list to say, this is still a valid idea. There are still people in our community who think this is important. So I'm not going to read you all of the projects in the Lusher area. I would say you guys live across from the Lusher area and you should check out the Lusher Area Master Plan. It's pretty cool. I guess some highlights are an agricultural themed play area somewhere on the property, which would provide more playground access for Palisades kids, an expansion of urban agriculture, lots of cool stuff in that plan. At Hazalia Field, actually, let me go back real quick because I want to say one more thing about Lusher. Those of you who know, and I think Nancy may be the only one from the board who's sat in with me during some conversations we've had about the land use and zoning requirements that are out there because it is in the county. In the case of Lusher, all of those projects, the city would be applying for land use approval from the county, not from the city. And there are some restrictions on what can currently be allowed in that zone. And so the athletic fields and the environmental education center are two uses that we probably won't realistically be able to move forward with during the planning period over the next 15 years, because those will require the city to first annex those properties into city limits, which is a whole other conversation very far down the road. So just want to make that caveat. Hazalia Field, we have a couple of replacements of things that are already there. We know that the playground is going to need to be replaced during the planning period. We have some improvements to the existing athletic field that we know we need to do. We want to formalize some trail connections to Lusher Farm. There's nothing huge there that we've identified, mostly just kind of improving, doing some access and ADA improvements. Reseek Park, I already touched on. In addition to doing the playground and picnic shelter, we also have the athletic field. That's our kind of phase 3 development at that park. in this plan for future development. And then we also have some skate park enhancements on our project list. That would be things like adding a cover over part of the skate park and possibly some lighting so that kids who want to use it can use it in the winter and they don't have to stop at 4 p.m. in November. I'm sure you've all seen how popular the skate park has been. It's been really, really exciting and fun to watch. And then Green Tree Park is also in Palisades, and we have a couple of projects identified for that. Replacing the playground, we have some improvements to the basketball court, and then we have ADA improvements to that park generally. I'll say that when we talk about replacing playgrounds, that's an opportunity where we will probably reach out to you as board members, both for Azalea and Green Tree, and say, hey, you know, it's time to replace this playground. Is there something different that could go here that you want to see, different types of playground equipment, things like that. So we'll definitely be in touch when we get to the time of moving forward with those projects. And those are the only parks we have identified improvements for within the Palisades neighborhood. So then those are what's on Parks Plan 2040. So I'm going to pause, I guess, for a second and see if anyone has questions about those ones that I shared so far.
I have a question. Oh, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yep, go ahead. Yeah.
The hill east of Azalea Field, what, if anything, will happen there?
In the near term, very little, I expect. In the Lusher Area Master Plan, that hill right behind Azalea, not the really steep part, but the flatter part, is what was identified for the 2 new athletic fields that are in the Lusher Area Master Plan. But as I mentioned, neither of those fields can be approved until the city decides to expand into the Stafford Basin at some point in the very far away future. So my guess would be maybe a little trail improvements, like applying some sort of decomposed granite gravel to those trails to improve them. That might be the most significant improvement that you see out
Okay.
there.
I'll just mention that me and many people that I know like to hike around there, where you can make the loop from Azalea around Lusher and back in a circle. And so those trails are important to many of us. So you may know that already, but I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, I mean, really, that's the kind of most, I don't know if it's the most popular use, but it's really one of the biggest uses that Lusher offers, is kind of more of a, not just like walking, but a kind of a hiking experience. And so one of the more near-term projects that we have identified is improving some of those trails by applying gravel in some areas, because on the steep parts, some of them get a little bit slick with the mud.
Right.
And those are some of the things that we're trying to improve through
Great.
that plan.
Thanks.
So I have a question, and then Chris Durkee and Rob Heap also have their hands up. The Green Tree Park, 1 or 2 years ago, a couple years ago, we had a small group from the P&A who approached the city with some very specific and well-researched ideas. Are you aware of all of those?
I am not.
Wow.
Who in the Parks Department were you approaching?
Does anybody on the call know who that was? Okay. How about, I know that I think Kirsten was involved. Let me find out who it was, and I'll email you or send it to Nancy to email it to you.
Okay. Were they like specific improvements that you wanted to see to the park?
Yes.
Okay.
And a lot of it was centered around ADA, multi-sensory children's, children at a certain age.
For play equipment?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
So my guess is that inquiry went to our parks staff. So Parks and Recreation kind of divides itself into parks, which is like parks maintenance and management of natural areas and that division. And then we have kind of a recreation programming division. I'm actually in neither of those divisions. I float around in the middle sort of. But if you had comments about wanting new park equipment specifically, those probably would have gone to our park staff. And my guess is that when we get to the time of saying, okay, we're ready to build this new playground at Green Tree, they would come forward and say, oh, well, someone in Palisades already has identified some things that they want as a starting place. But as I said, this plan is so high level that we're not even getting into what those specifics are. We're just talking about, hey, we know this playground was installed in, I can't remember exactly what year Green Tree was installed in, and needs to be replaced in some other year in the future over the planning period. So
Thank
there's
you.
definitely, those are not lost ideas, probably.
Chris? You're muted.
Hey, Kara, so good to have you back. Last time I talked with Ivan informally about Phase 3 Rasik, he said that since the original plan for Rasik was developed, the school district has now opened up access to their athletic fields during non-school hours. And so he suspected that the need for that athletic field would be less. And he said, of course, we will have to do a needs analysis before it goes ahead. And now, since that time, the C3 project has come on scene with the housing at the church site, and traffic is such a big concern, always has been, but now even more so. So I suspect that the public support for athletic field at Rasik would be even less. So was there a needs analysis done, or is it still coming up? What's the likelihood that an athletic field would actually go in Phase 3?
So there is our athletic fields requirements study, and we are in the middle of updating it right now. Actually, towards the end of updating it, we should have a draft by March. And that will feed into this plan and help prioritize things. If that plan says, well, we really don't need another athletic field, then putting an athletic field at Rasik may drop in priority. But I can't say because I haven't seen the results of that study yet.
So if it does go away, then will there be a reopening of public input for what might happen in that same space?
Potentially. I don't know. We haven't really played out that whole scenario. At this time, we're still planning on building it because it is still what is approved for that property. And I know that there's some level of city council support for adding it there. But if the athletic field study comes back and says we really don't need any new fields in the city at all, then I think we would have to reconsider whether we want to make a significant capital investment into that property for something that a study has said we don't need.
Could you seed it and maintain it and let it just be an open park temporarily? Right now, it's not, it's kind of unsightly.
It's actually seeded with a wildflower mix right now that is undergoing its grow-in period. So it'll be really beautiful in the spring. But it's a kind of a native meadow mix intended to not really be mowed. But in theory, I suppose you could, but we just have to see what the study says.
Okay.
Rob Heath?
Hi, thanks. My question is in general on the long range plan, the 40-year plan. Is the public review process closed, or is that still open? And what was the process that was used for public review?
So the plan is not done. It's still very much underway. So we've had 2 advisory committees that have been reviewing materials, project materials along the way. Those have been posted to the project website and people can come to meetings and comment on them. We've had 7 meetings each with the Community Advisory Committee and the Parks Board discussing this plan. 3 briefings with City Council so far. And in March, excuse me, our next meeting, we'll be posting a public review draft of the full plan and opening that up to people to be able to actually comment on the full draft. And that'll be open for 3 or 4 weeks. So hopefully you will see, posts and information on the website and everything about that when it happens.
Oh yeah, thanks. I think just from my area in Palisades, I think there's humongous interest when that opens up for general public comment and for review. So yeah, I'm really familiar with kind of like the land use process for public review. But it seems like on the park side, I don't know if it's the public themselves or whatever, but it doesn't seem like there's as much review. But I know from our neighbors in the area here in Palisades, they're very interested in looking at the long range plan and being able to provide feedback. So yeah, thank you. We'll look forward to seeing that.
It's a little bit different than the short-term land use development process, which has really specific requirements about like post notice on this property with a sign and a neighborhood meeting, and you have to, mail things out. But because this plan is both long-term, long range, and applies citywide, it's just a different method. So we try to do a combination of the neighborhood workshops that we had over the summer, and advisory committee meetings, and open houses, and surveys, and a public review draft at the end, and try to give people lots of different opportunities to weigh in kind of along the way, so we don't get to the very end and then say, oh, well, actually everyone hated this very fundamental idea that we started with 2 years ago.
But you'll keep Nancy or the chair informed of when the workshops, the surveys, and all that business, so we can share that with our neighbors.
Yeah, and most of those are done. The next step, like I said, will be a public review of the full document draft. And you guys have already been participated in a lot of the meetings and workshops, et cetera, that have happened so far, and the surveys. And I know Nancy does an excellent job of sharing that information. But I will definitely let you know when there's a draft posted online.
Like, Kira, one more question. I didn't hear any updates on the rec center. Any updates on when it's opening?
So soon.
Yeah.
Is it in the month of March?
Should be within the next couple of months.
Couple of months, so March or April. Okay.
March or April would be my guess.
Of what year?
What
I
year?
didn't say what year.
Nancy, before you ask your question, David Westerdahl has a question.
Okay. You're muted, David.
Hi, thanks for joining us, Kyra. I just had a question. I utilize Leisure Farms, for walks and I'll run the trails intermittently. And I just kind of noticed that here during the winter, especially last month when it was quite wet, that some of the low-lying areas were really muddy and hard for people to walk and utilize. And it also looks like, some of the paths where there's paved paths, and near them, there's been water erosion and just some other areas that, would seem to benefit from some TLC. And I'm just kind of curious how the park there is maintained and what you anticipate budgetarily for that, and also what's the annual growth rate is going to look like if you look into that for foot traffic in the upcoming years.
So I will start with your first question. And are you referring to the Hazalia Field property or the hills kind of up above it in the farm?
Well, I think probably more the Hazalia Fields, the lower area near the turf fields, but also I guess I'm just kind of curious how some of that's maintained by the city.
It depends on the area, but I think if I'm trying to recall specifically what the surfaces are around there, a lot of them I believe are like there's a kind of a wood chip trail that goes around the side of the athletic fields. It's how you like walk up into the farm. That's just regular application of wood chips, and so you might have caught it on a bad day before they applied new chips. As far as maintenance costs, we actually estimated maintenance costs by facility, and I think we estimated that Hazalia was about $300,000 a year to maintain that park. That's an estimate because our park staff, they all kind of share facilities, but that was our most recent estimate. And can you remind me of the third part of your question? Oh, you're muted.
Right. It just had to do with anticipated growth in foot traffic there, obviously with the LORAC coming, to open, as well as improvements there to the skate park and Rasique in general. So I guess I'm just kind of curious if you're kind of also looking at needs for additional maintenance of those facilities as you're getting more foot traffic and other people kind of utilizing those areas.
I do think that there are going to be more people walking, particularly between those three places. And one of the things that we've done in anticipation of that is fill in a gap in the off-street path on the north side of Stafford Road between the LORAC and Rasique Park, which there was actually, I didn't know this until recently, but there was actually a pedestrian fatality at that location. some number of years ago where someone tried to cross because the sidewalk just ends. So
Mm.
we've tried to think about how people are going to be going between those facilities and fill in sidewalk gaps when we can. We're actually going to be opening up the path in front of the LORAC soon. And hopefully that provides a good way for people to be able to walk in between all of those facilities in a safe way, especially with the high school being right there, because I know I've witnessed lots of kids getting out of school, leaving their cars parked at the high school and walking down to Receipt to use the skate park after school. And I think that's going to continue happening.
It is
Thank you.
open, by the way. The sidewalk in front of Lorac is open because I walked it.
Good.
So my question is the one I prompted you with ahead of the meeting. A lot of feedback coming to this board from our neighbors regarding pickleball because it was in the Lake Oswego review, and there was a big to do about that. Can you share anything at all about plans for pickleball?
Yes, and I hadn't gotten quite there yet because pickleball it's definitely a project in our Parks Plan 2040 kind of overall plan. It is what I would categorize as a project with no site identified yet, but it's a council priority. It's something that we know we want to build. With the way we've described it is somewhere between 4 and 8 new outdoor pickleball courts to serve residents somewhere in the city. And it's on our near-term project list, meaning that once this plan gets approved, it's kind of the next thing that we're going to look at is where's the right place for this, and really seriously consider most likely some type of land acquisition or something to foster that. We don't have a site identified for it yet, unfortunately. That's kind of going to have to be a process in itself. But it is definitely a priority. So if you're hearing that from people who want to be able to go out and play, we are also hearing that.
Are there specs around it has to be this far from homes or anything like that with that land acquisition?
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't have a specific land acquisition policy, but we're going to move forward with the site recommendations that were developed a year or two ago during the site evaluation process that we did. Whether that's new property or finding some way to utilize an existing property, I'm not sure, but
okay,
we're definitely looking at it. The other project that's on our sort of implementation strategies list is a feasibility study for some sort of indoor pickleball facility somewhere in the city. And that would definitely require a land acquisition, and it may be somehow paired with outdoor courts, or it may be a separate facility.
And Lorac will have pickleball indoors from what I've read.
Yes, Lorac will have 3 pickleball courts, or the gym will be striped for 3 pickleball courts.
Okay, thank you.
Jane?
Hey, Carl Schmitz here. I joined Jane. A quick question here. You'd referred to development in the Stafford area, Stafford Rosemont area outside city limits. Could you expand on what the structure of something like that would look like? Are these long-term leases? Would the city consider any type of a 3P public-private partnership in any of these engagements? Something a little less than conventional in terms of development of a city-owned property with a conventionally funded type program.
Are you referring to Lusher Farm?
Could be Lusher, it could be on the other side of Rosemont. There's properties clustered around that area that may be available with the right type of agreement. And then, it would be interesting to understand if there's any corollary or relationship to development. If that field study proves that you don't need to develop the last bit of Reseek as well. If you look at the terrain, there are ways of a build out that would actually shield homes up above from any ambient noise from the site itself.
Okay, you're referring to specifically pickleball development.
Well, also just what the city's general approach would be to development of facilities outside of your own city limit.
Okay.
Stafford Rosemont, for example.
I can't speak to whether we have a specific land acquisition policy related to purchasing new land, or whether we have a specific policy for doing that with private public partnerships, although there may be one, but I'm just not familiar with it. Obviously, we do own a certain amount of land outside the city limits already, Lusher Farms, Sunny Slope, Stevens Meadow. Land that is outside the city limits in Clackamas County is regulated by Clackamas County for land use, and land that is outside city limits and zoned exclusive farm and forest use, or EFU, cannot be developed with any sport courts, athletic fields. There's a variety of other things, but this is what we're running into with Lusher Farm is those, when I said that we can't move forward with those uses until those properties are annexed, it's because they're zoned exclusive farm use now. And the majority of the land located outside city limits in the sort of Stafford area is zoned EFU, so could not be developed with any sort of sport facility.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
I mean, that said, I think we are going to have to get kind of creative with whatever type of land acquisition or process we do undertake to find a good place for this in the city, outside the city, wherever it may be. So we're definitely open to creative solutions, just not on EFU.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kira. Chris, you have a question?
Yeah, to continue on, Kara, if the athletic field at Rosique is deemed not needed, would that space be a potential site for pickleball? Does Park and Rec see Rosique as a potential site for outdoor pickleball courts?
We don't have any plans for it at this time. Like I said, in our Parks Plan 2040, we are still planning on building a athletic field unless we receive findings that say we shouldn't. And then I think that's going to be a conversation that we need to have with City Council if it's still a priority for them. You know, with our athletic field users, if it's still a priority for them. So we're not ready to open that can of worms yet.
Thank you. Was there anybody else have any questions? Kira, did you have anything else you wanted to cover?
I have a couple other kind of fun project ideas that I wanted to share that are in the same realm of pickleball courts. We don't necessarily have a site identified for them, but they're things that we heard about during the planning process. In addition to indoor pickleball courts, outdoor pickleball courts, and a few other things, we have identified that some sort of splash pad or spray ground, sometimes they are called. A lot of people in the community, and especially I think at the Hazalia neighborhood workshop, said that was something that they would really like to see somewhere in the city. So we're hoping to find a place to build an amenity like that. And then we also have a couple of system-wide projects, including trail connections, sort of system-wide, connecting homes to parks, drinking fountain replacements, bollard replacements, and implementation of our signage manual, which is not that exciting, maybe to you. It's very exciting to me to have consistent signage in all our different parks. But those are things that are not necessarily specific to Palisades, but they may potentially impact Palisades. So just wanted to make sure I cover those as well. I don't have much else for you, but I'm happy to answer more questions. I wish I could give you a more concrete answer on the future of Rosique. If I could tell the future, I definitely wouldn't be working in local government, but that's where we are right now. I know there's lots of competing interests and space is hard to come by, so I understand why.
Right. Thank you, Kira. Appreciate your time here.
Kira, maybe one last question. Has there been any discussion on the support of an ice skating rink, even a temporary rink, like what the city of Portland does? I'm just surprised that's never come up in Lake Oswego. It'd be so nice to have one.
You know, I haven't heard much about it. I did have one person ask about a not an ice skating rink, but like a roller derby rink at some point during the planning process, but I haven't heard a lot about ice skating, but that's a fun idea. Again, if you've got a piece of property that you think would be good for ice skating, let us know.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks for taking your time with us.
Yeah, appreciate it. Okay, moving
Take care.
on to the treasurer. John Thies.
Okay. So our current balance in our Home Street bank account is $607 and 69 cents. We currently have about $125 in pending reimbursements that I can submit, but to be eligible, the expenses must be incurred between July 1st of 2024 and June 30th of 2025. And all of our reimbursement requests for this funding cycle must be submitted by July 5th of 2025. The city has a $100 minimum for submitting reimbursement requests. And while PNA has exceeded the minimum to submit a reimbursement request, I am reluctant to submit our current pending reimbursements because I'm afraid any further expenses incurred may not reach the $100 minimum. The existing expenses incurred all fall within the list of pre-approved expenses. There have recently been discussions about using emergency preparedness as a vehicle to obtain funds from the city. I have reached out to Quinn Brenner with the city of Lake Oswego to find out if there are any specific requirements related to submitting emergency preparedness reimbursements for neighborhood associations. And this was his response. We have not yet opened applications for the emergency preparedness grant. And unlike the funding for neighborhood associations program, it will require pre-approval of expenses. You know, you submit a grant request, receive an award, then make purchases. It sounds like the yard signs you purchased fall comfortably under the existing pre-approved expense program. So I recommend proceeding down this route as planned. So as usual, PNA residents are encouraged to donate to our neighborhood association. For information about projected expenses and how to donate, refer to the Get Involved, I Want to Donate page on the Palisades Neighborhood Organization website.
Thank you, John. Anything else?
Thanks for sending me your notes, John.
All right, will do.
So before we get onto the committee reports, I wanted to mention that in April, we have the second Thursday of April is the last day for people to vote for area rep and chair position. And I encourage everybody, whether they're incumbent or somebody who's, even if there's already currently a chair or a board representative, area rep for the area that they live in, if they want to run for area rep, we can use all the help that we can get, and whoever doesn't happen to win, there's always other areas that you can contribute in the neighborhood association. So we welcome everyone. I myself am I've done 2 years, and I'm happy to have somebody else run for chair or several somebodies, and I will be there as ex officio and continue to help where needed. So I just wanted to make that clear. And I also want to mention, because at least one board member mentioned to me that this wasn't clear to them, that my goal when I became chair was to make it so that the chair is not the one whose opinion or whose ideas rule the PNA. It should be the board as a whole to voice their interests, their views, and then if it's more if it's a more serious or sensitive subject, the whole neighborhood should be canvassed with and asked via survey or something, so we have quantitative information. So the PNA has not always been this way, but I think it works best this way. I think it's the most equitable way, and any future chairs I would hope would do that, and that the chair would be neutral, certainly give their vote just like anybody else, but not steer the whole committee to their will. So I'm very interested in passing the baton on to somebody who is, oh, you know, you need some organizational skills, but mostly being open-minded and equitable in terms of serving our neighborhood. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. And if anybody on the call today knows somebody who might be interested, they're welcome to call me if they want more information. I'm happy to sit down with anybody for a brief coffee meeting to give more information and let them know what, you know, more of how that is, what the position entails. And then there's a form on the website for declaration of candidacy.
Is anyone here interested in the chair position?
Chris Durkee? Anybody else?
Thank you. I am. And Frederic, you've done an amazing job over your 2 years, and you really have set up the chair position as a neutral leader of a team of a lot of very hardworking, dedicated people. And I intend to keep that going. And so, yes, I think my turn at the wheel has come up. And I think also because of my efforts with the South Shore Fire Station, I think there's a synergy there to really let the city see the importance of working with the neighborhood association, especially Palisades. So anyways, I am putting my name up as a candidate for chair.
Thank you, Chris. That's great. But I don't want to discourage anybody else from, and Chris says the same thing. He's nodding. If anybody else is interested in a leadership position, please, you know, great. Let's hear from you. I think that was it for me. And let's see. Let's see. We've got Parks. Do you have anything more to add, Nancy?
No, I think I've taken enough minutes today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Nancy. Chris Durkee and Meg, land use. Meg Wilkinson.
Yeah, I just have a quick, and Meg can add to this if she wants, that the South Shore, or rather the Azalea Living Ken's project, his latest designs, he's got 4 new schemes that he's proposing, is on the website. So I won't go through any of that. They range in density from 54 to 64 units. If you haven't looked at them already, I would encourage everybody to look at those and see what they involve. One significant change and evolution over his various schemes is that he has reduced the density along Stafford and moved the townhomes into the middle of the site. And on Stafford, there are just 2-story cottages. And even the latest schemes, some of them have moved those cottages even farther away from Stafford. So it's not a wall of buildings along Stafford. So please take a look at those. He's proposing a formal neighborhood meeting as part of his land use application in March, probably the 20th or 21st. So it's too bad he couldn't join the meeting tonight, but is there any thought on the board? Is the 20th or the 21st? Do either one of those 2 dates work or not work for people? Is there a preference?
The 20th of February, Chris?
March,
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
Let's
I have
maybe show of hands for people who could make the 20th.
That's a Thursday. I prefer that to Friday.
Right. 3, 4, and show of hands for people that could make the 21st. Okay. Okay, I'll let Ken know. And Meg, if you have anything to add, please add.
I don't really have anything to add. The only thing of note is I did do a minor adjustment of the protection zone for the Stafford project. That had one section that was facing on the concrete, but they kind of backed that off a little bit just to changes in drainage. But other than that, it's been kind of quiet. Just some little odds and ends going on.
Thank you. Chris, do you want to do is there anything else for land use?
Well, I don't know, Rob,
Oh,
looks
I'm
like,
sorry, Rob. Pardon me.
Sorry, thank you. Yeah, Chris, I was just wondering, it was talked about, and I think the density is all based on affordable housing. But is there anything that's come out recently about what the definition of affordable is? I mean, any like prices, any type of, indication for that?
no, I think his intent is with the cottages and the townhomes is to have some percentage to be more affordable than others, but I don't think, to my knowledge, I'm not sure, I don't think any of them are going to conform to the county's definition of affordability being whatever some percentage of the county median income.
At one point, early on, that question was asked, Rob, of
Mhm.
the developer, and he said, there was two words. One is affordable and the other is something
Attainable.
attainable. So he
Mhm.
says these will not be affordable, but they'll be attainable. And apparently that's $700,000
Okay, thank you.
attainable. So that's, anyways, enough said. So that's that. I wish there was something that's more affordable, but it's Lake Oswego. All right, anything else for land use? Anybody else have a question? Do you have a report for the fire station?
Sure. All the information's on the website, so I won't go through any of that, but what is not on the website is what we concluded in the last meeting of the task force, which is that the bond would probably be to finance the replacement of Station 212 would probably be a 20-year bond. Say it's 18 million, which is our recommended budget. The assessment would be roughly 17 cents per thousand dollars of assessed value, which would equate on an average $600,000 assessed value home, not real property value, but assessed value, would be about $93 a year increase on our property tax.
What
that's-
was the per thousand again? Sorry.
Yeah, it's roughly 17 cents.
Okay, thanks.
That's where we are right now, but we still have to go before city council to get the whole project approved.
Mhm.
And then the next step is the city will hire an architect and a cost consultant to really refine the costs. And so it's likely to be something different, but order of magnitude, that's what we're looking at. The final task force meeting is next Thursday to approve the report that we will deliver to the city council. The city council meeting is March 4th at 5:30. And I would ask everyone, please attend if you can. And there are two reasons why. One, this is our fire station. This is right here in Palisades. This is the fire station we all rely on. And second of all, I want the city to see, especially the city manager, to see that the neighborhood association is behind this project and they are going to help bring it over the finish line in getting the bond passed. Um, as you all know, when we met with Martha, a year and a half ago, she was of the opinion that neighborhood associations are kind of obsolete, and that's not true. And I think we need to show her that in a positive way. I think what we did with the receipt bond for the play area was a good first step, but now I think the fire station here is a great opportunity to do that. So I would encourage everyone to attend. It won't be a long presentation, and you can certainly leave after it. Yes, Nancy?
I wonder if we could get more beyond, the 10 or so people here tonight to be interested in that meeting. I'd be happy to drop off flyers in my neighborhood if we decided to print up flyers.
That's a great idea. I'll mention that at next Thursday's task force meeting. Madison Thiesing is the assistant to the city manager. She's going to be leading the community engagement process. and she's already on board developing that. So I will talk to her about that and see what we can do to help with that. That's a great idea.
And I can just, if you come up with something, Chris, I can distribute that to the other neighborhood association chairs
Okay, excellent.
for them to distribute
Perfect.
if they're
Perfect.
interested. But yeah, I'm
Perfect.
sure we
Thank you.
can get a
Yeah,
number
we're-
of people to do
We're
that.
the ones with the vested interest in I mean, I'm a quarter mile from that station,
Right.
so I want to keep it.
Well, it doesn't hurt to send an email to them if they
Yeah.
want to also.
Oh,
I
for
think.
sure, for sure.
Okay, so Chris, will you add the reminder of the city council meeting to the base camp leadership board?
Yep, absolutely.
And there's a number of board members not on the call, so emphasize the importance in your goal.
Yep.
Okay, Rick is not here for emergency preparedness, but I want to say real quick that Andrew Watson has withdrawn his candidacy to be the emergency rep community coordinator, committee coordinator, because after looking at the statistics of our newsletter and website, there aren't enough people who are really, and also talking to neighbors, there aren't enough people who are motivated, willing, and moving forward with emergency, with even being prepared themselves. So he says, you know, we should really, well, he didn't say this. I interpolate that as saying, you know, we as a board each need to do our part in getting the message to people about why this is important, that just surviving an ice storm but not considering that it could be much worse in the future in terms of other natural disasters or whatever. So I'll be talking to all of you a little bit more about that and how we can get our better messaging and people motivated to be prepared. Rob Heap, I'm sorry, does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. Rob Heap, do you have anything for traffic and pathway?
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to add is, just following up from our last board meeting, one of the actions I was taking too is try to engage council in the discussions regarding Lake Ridge. So that's in process. I've reached out and kind of working with the council liaison to try to get that set up. So I haven't heard back from him yet, but I'm still following up. I'm hoping by next meeting, I'll have an update on that. And we'll have a direct path to city council on that.
Fantastic. And as those of you who've been following the website or Basecamp collectively with Rob's guidance and Meg's and a lot of other people who were involved, the police have been around Lake Ridge ticketing and trying to take care of, I don't know, was it just parking or was it traffic as well?
It was both, yeah, parking and traffic.
Yeah, we are moving the needle is what I'm trying to say. Our collective and respectful efforts are being heard. So thank you to everybody who was involved. Let's see. David, did you have anything you wanted to contribute? I know you're new and don't have a lot going on just yet.
Well, I just am familiarizing myself since the last meeting with the Basecamp app and website, and thank you for maybe reaching out to me and introducing me through that. And I look forward to helping. I think we've had some conversations about emergency prep and social related considerations for the spring and later this year. So definitely, happy to be involved, and thank you.
Thank you, David. I'll get in touch with you on those two subjects in the next week or two. I'm going out of town this Saturday for a week, but when I get back, we'll talk. Let's see. Carrie, do you want to talk about all the many hats that you wear and what you want to share?
Nothing really to share other than Chuck Buck's not here, but I'd give him a huge shout out because he covered me on Pet of the Month because I got ghosted from one of our neighbors. I'm gonna find them again though. Thanks for putting out the new signs. We do have a schedule that we're working off of. So the next production, hopefully we can get like 3 signs done at one time and delivered. Do not throw away your signs. I think we've all talked about that before. Just a reminder, keep them. They may be repurposed. We may, use them again with different dates on them. And then newsletter, we have seen an uptick. Rob, I meant to mention this to you. We saw an uptick of subscribers in your region, in your area. So that's good. Yeah, we're getting, solid results. It is unfortunate that Andrew decided not to continue, but he did have some good ideas that I think we can all work on moving forward. So he definitely was good information about some approaches. So I look forward to doing that. But that's it.
All right. I'm going to move on to Rick Cook, unless there is somebody from the board who has anything else to share. Go ahead, Rick. Thanks for being with us.
Well, sorry for the lateness. I was out shoveling the driveway. Really
For
was.
those who don't know you, can you please?
Yeah, I always like to say that I'm at neighborhood 0. I'm at the roundabout. I'm the southwest corner of the little farm there, which is kind of the staging area currently for the gas pipeline that is going in Stafford. And get used to it, because it's once they're gone, then the next phase is going to come on, and it's going to be about 2 years before this whole project's maybe close to being done. So that's that piece. Just very quickly, Senator Meeks, whose district is Happy Valley, Oregon City, and Gladstone, put a Senate bill forward, 529, which he wants to fund a study for starting a city in Stafford, which blindsided almost everybody in the region, from Jules Walters and us, and even the commissioners, I don't think had it. And the commissioners wanted to be sure that it was something they didn't put forward, but they also, we found out that they were kind of neutral on the same what he does. And just the other piece is Clackamas County has got $1.2 million in studies. One was through the lotteries to do an industrial study of the whole county. And then there's the other one that's $1 million application that they put in with Metro to look at housing and what infrastructure is needed throughout the entire county. I know Mayor Buck put a note in early saying, why are we counting Stafford? In 2018, first off, Stafford has been studied like 5 or 6 times, and it's basically, the last study was in 2018, and it was $2.7 billion with a B dollars for just the infrastructure. And so our thought is, why are we going to study something that we know that we can't fund? Anyway, so that's kind of the update from Stafford Hamlet and from the road. So yes.
What did Mark Meek say is the reason to consider this zone? What's the motivation?
I think he's thinking that, as much input has been putting in, or interest in the housing markets and thing right now, where I think he's thinking like, well, you guys need to do your share in what's in it's the closest thing inside the urban reserves. But once again, yeah, we're close, but for the amount of money for developable land out here, it's just astronomical. And as the former mayor Lou Ogden of Tualatin said, if this area was so good for development, it already would have happened. It's just ridiculous. I mean, it's like, I think somebody was saying it's like $1 million per acre for development. So it's just astronomical. And it's, in my belief, it's stupid to study. What's an Einstein thing? Why are we studying the same thing over and over again where you're going to come out with the same answer?
Okay, thanks.
And so, Rick, Carrie Love, so this is a Senate bill he's putting forth, which means that should we reach out to our senator or just have any sort of engagement to give feedback to people in Salem? Like what can we do?
Supposedly it's sitting there and everybody's saying you don't need to worry about it, but you might want to just drop a line to Senator Wagner and
Mhm.
say, you know, nobody in the region was even asked about it. Or saying like, hey, this is kind of coming your way. What do you think? And all of a sudden, boom, there it was. I got it through Corey Buchanan, who's the Lake Oswego in Tidings report. He said, hey, do you know about this bill? Jules Walters didn't know about it, who represents, you know, one of the other representatives, and Tualatin didn't know about it. Evidently, Mayor Buck knew about it, but it was like, wow. So it probably wouldn't hurt to drop a little line.
Okay. Is there anything else before we close the meeting? Thank you, Rick.
Thank you guys.
I just want to thank Carrie for the signs.
Do you like
Carrie
them?
is doing
My
amazing.
cat, my little cat with the balloon. Come on, I love
Yep.
it.
It's out on
This
it's
was
out on
the
South Shore.
inspiration. This was the inspiration right here.
All right.
Thanks for
Carrie has
pointing it
made
out.
things way more interesting and colorful and getting the message out. And if anybody on this call doesn't know, she does an amazing job and spends a lot of time on the newsletter, the website, the messaging, oh my gosh, so much more. The signs, just a lot. And so yay.
Does that cat have a name?
His name is Tambourine Ludwig Subway Love. Can't just give one name, I guess, to our cat.
An initial or something like LTB or what?
No, you have to say it all.
Not enough time tonight for all of that.
All right, everybody,
All
it's
right.
8:04. I don't want to hold you any longer.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right.